I was finally happy again, then she reappeared like nothing ever happened. I stayed in Raleigh for 2 more weeks after that dinner. Not because I had to. Not because they begged. But because, for the first time in years, it felt like home. Things didn't magically fix themselves overnight. Mom still overmommed. Dad still avoided emotions like they were radioactive. But something had cracked open between us. A door that had been shut for so long we forgot what was on the other side. And Sophie? She and I became something I never thought possible, actual sisters. We text now. About dumb things, memes, movies, how she's convinced iced coffee tastes different if you stir it counterclockwise. She asks for advice. Sends me outfit pics. Once, she even called just to say she was having a bad day and needed to hear someone say, "You're not crazy." That used to be me. I used to be the one silently unraveling while everyone asked how Sophie was doing. Now, we check on each other. And when she finally submitted that college application, the one she'd been scared to even open, she called me first. "I did it," she whispered. I almost cried. Not because she'd applied, but because she chose to share the moment with me. That was when I realized I didn't need to compete for my family's love anymore. I didn't need to prove I was valuable. I didn't need the spotlight. I just needed a seat at the table. And now, I've got one. This past Easter, we were all back together again. New dynamic, same chaos. Sophie made deviled eggs that were objectively terrible. Mom made everyone go around and say one thing they were proud of. Usually it was Sophie's time to shine. But when they got to her, she smiled at me first. Then said, "I'm proud of Brooke. For coming home. For speaking up. For reminding me it's okay to not be okay." No one said anything for a moment. Then Mom teared up. Dad raised his glass. And me? I didn't feel invisible. I didn't feel jealous. I felt seen. Finally. So if you've ever felt sidelined in your own family, like the supporting role in a story you were born to be part of, hear this. Sometimes the real shift doesn't come from waiting for them to notice you. Sometimes it comes from speaking up, even if your voice shakes. Even if it means lighting a few quiet fires. Because the truth is, you don't need to be the favorite. You just need to matter. And now, I do. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped a carton of eggs. They cracked all over the pavement, yolk pooling around my boots, but I barely noticed. I hadn't seen that face in 7 years, and here she was, acting like we'd just bumped into each other at the gas station after a couple of weeks apart. Not like she'd ghosted me, not like she'd hollowed me out and left me with nothing but questions I never got answers to. "Olivia," I said, finally. Her name tasted wrong on my tongue. Like trying to drink after you've brushed your teeth, familiar but off. She laughed. "Still say it the same way. You always dragged out the L like it meant something. What the hell are you doing here?" She glanced past me at the cart, at the paper towels, the almond milk, the box of tampons Claire had texted me to pick up. Her eyes lingered a second too long, and I hated that I still noticed things like that. "I moved back," she said, casually. "Couple weeks ago. My mom's sick, figured I'd help out for a while. Didn't realize you were still around." "Why would you?" I said, a little too fast. "You didn't exactly ask me anything before you vanished." She flinched at that. Good. A part of me needed her to feel even a fraction of the weight I'd carried. "Look, I didn't plan to run into you," she said, her voice dropping lower. "But now that I have, I just wanted to say I'm sorry." I stood there, dumbfounded. Sorry? She was sorry? 7 years, and that's what she led with? I opened my mouth to say something, I don't know what, probably something mean, but a familiar voice called out from across the lot. "Babe? You okay?" Claire. She was jogging toward me, wearing the yellow sundress I loved, her sunglasses perched on top of her head. She smiled at me, then noticed Olivia. "Oh," she said, glancing between us. "Hi. Claire, this is." I paused, unsure how to finish the sentence. "My ex? My ghost? My unfinished sentence?" "Olivia," she said for me, extending a hand like she belonged in this moment. "I'm an old friend." Claire shook her hand, polite but cautious. "Nice to meet you. I'm Claire." "Yeah," Olivia said, smirking. I figured. I wanted to crawl out of my skin. "I should go," Olivia said, already stepping back. "But, I meant what I said. I'm sorry. Maybe we'll run into each other again." And just like that, she turned and walked away, boots echoing on the concrete like a memory I couldn't shake. Claire looked at me, eyebrows raised. That was her, wasn't it? I didn't answer. I didn't have to. Back at home, things felt off. Claire didn't press right away, but I could tell she had questions. We sat on the porch drinking sweet tea, the cicadas buzzing like static in the background. I stared out at the yard, wondering why the air suddenly felt heavier. She left you, didn't she? Claire finally asked. Yeah. Did she ever explain why? No, I said. Not really. She nodded slowly, chewing on the inside of her cheek the way she always did when she was trying not to overreact. Do you still love her? That question hit me like a sucker punch. I didn't answer right away. Because the truth was I didn't know. I loved Claire. I did. But Olivia was unfinished business. The kind that burrowed deep and stayed there, waiting. And now she was back. I didn't sleep that night. Claire did, barely. She curled up next to me like always, her arm draped across my chest, but I could feel the space between us had changed. Something about seeing Olivia had shifted the ground beneath us, like a fault line had cracked open and neither of us knew how deep it went yet. By morning, I had a headache and a gut full of regret. I kept telling myself it was nothing. A freak run-in. A coincidence. People came back to town all the time. Hell, maybe Olivia would disappear again, just as suddenly as she came back, and I could pretend that Kroger parking lot had been some weird dream. But I couldn't stop thinking about her. Not in the old, romantic way. Not yet, anyway. It was more like my brain had been rewired overnight, like some locked door in my memory had been kicked wide open. I remembered things I hadn't thought about in years, the way she used to hum while brushing her teeth, or how she made breakfast at midnight just because she liked chaotic eggs, or the exact shape of her handwriting in the margins of my old notebooks. Claire tried to pretend everything was fine, but she wasn't stupid. She started tiptoeing around me, the way people do when they think something might be broken but they're scared to touch it. Then came Thursday. I was on a ladder outside a client's house, fixing siding in the early afternoon heat, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it at first. Then it buzzed again. And again. By the time I climbed down, I had 3 missed calls and a text that made my stomach drop. Olivia, can we talk? Please. It's important. I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumb hovered over the delete button. But I didn't press it. Instead, I replied. Where? She sent me the address of a diner on the edge of town. The kind of place that hadn't changed its menu since the 70s and smelled like burnt coffee and maple syrup. I told Claire I had a job running long and I'd be home late. Lying to her felt like scraping glass against my throat. I got to the diner just after 6. Olivia was already there, sitting in a booth with her hands wrapped around a chipped ceramic mug. She looked different this time, smaller, somehow. Like life had worn her down in places I couldn't see. Thanks for coming, she said, her voice softer than I remembered. I didn't sit right away. You said it was important. She nodded. It is. But first, can I just say something without you getting up and walking out? I stared at her. You've got 5 minutes. She took a breath. I didn't leave you because I stopped loving you, she said. I left because I was pregnant. That pulled the floor out from under me. I sat down without realizing I was doing it. My vision tunneled, and for a second, all I could hear was the buzzing fluorescent lights above us. What? I croaked. I was 2 months along, she said, eyes shining. I freaked out. You remember how messed up I was back then. I couldn't hold a job, I didn't know what I wanted, and I sure as hell didn't think I could be a mother. Wait, I held up a hand. You were pregnant? And you didn't tell me? I didn't know how. I thought, if I left, I could protect both of you. I moved to Oregon. Stayed with a cousin for a while. I didn't want you to feel trapped. Trapped? I hissed, loud enough that a couple at the counter glanced over. You didn't even give me the chance. She looked down at her mug. I lost the baby. Silence dropped between us like a bomb. I felt my heartbeat in my teeth. I miscarried at 16 weeks, she said, her voice barely audible. I didn't know how to tell you after that. And the longer I waited, the worse it got. Then it just felt like too much time had passed. I didn't know what to say. Didn't know if I should scream or cry or just walk out the door and keep walking until none of this felt real anymore. Why now? I finally asked. Why come back? Because I'm tired of running, she said. And I'm still in love with you. There it was. She detonated the final grenade and just sat there, watching me burn. I didn't say anything. I just stared at her. She looked older now. Not in a bad way, just real. Like life had hit her too, the way it hit all of us eventually. There were faint lines around her eyes. Her hands trembled just slightly when she took a sip of her coffee. And in that moment, I realized something brutal. She wasn't a ghost anymore. She was human. You can't just show up and say that, I finally said. You can't disappear for 7 years and then drop something like this in a damn diner booth. I know, she said quickly. I know. I'm not asking for anything. I needed you to know. I needed to stop carrying it alone. I looked out the window. Cars were moving past in the fading light, people heading home to families, to dinner tables and Netflix shows, and dogs who bark when you walk in. The normalcy of it all made me feel like I was watching the world from behind glass. You broke me, I said quietly. I built my life back from nothing. And now I have someone. Someone who didn't run. Someone who stayed. I'm not trying to take that away from you, Olivia said, and for once, she sounded sincere. But I had to tell you the truth. You deserved that much. There it was. The honesty I used to beg for, finally showing up years too late. I stood up. I don't know what you want from me, I said, grabbing my keys from the table. I don't either, she whispered. I didn't look back. When I got home, Claire was sitting on the couch in one of my old t-shirts, her hair pulled up in a messy bun, reading a book with her legs tucked under her. She looked up as I walked in and gave me a soft smile. But that smile faded the second she saw my face. Where were you really? I froze. She closed the book and set it on the coffee table. You're not a good liar, you know. And you smelled like diner grease when you hugged me. I sat down across from her. And for the first time, I told her everything. The whole damn thing. About the baby. About the miscarriage. About what Olivia said. I left out nothing, because I couldn't bear to have even one more secret sitting between us. When I was done, Claire didn't say anything for a long time. She just stared at me like she was trying to figure out if I was still the person she fell in love with. Do you still love her? She asked again. I closed my eyes. No, I said. I don't love her. I love who she was. I loved who I was with her. But that person died a long time ago. Claire nodded slowly. And what about now? I love you, I said, choking on the words. But I don't know how to prove that to you now. She looked away. I don't need you to prove it, she said. I just need you to choose. And that was the moment. Right there. The crossroads. One road led backward, full of nostalgia and ghosts and things I could never quite fix. The other led forward, uncertain, maybe a little cracked, but real. Solid. I reached for her hand. I choose you. She didn't cry. Claire wasn't like that. She just nodded once, tight-lipped, and leaned her head on my shoulder. We sat there like that until the sun disappeared and the room went dark. Olivia left town a few days later. I never saw her again. Sometimes I wonder what might have happened if things had gone differently. If she'd stayed the first time. If we'd raised a kid together. If she'd told me the truth back then. But life doesn't work on what-ifs. It moves on with or without you. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop chasing what broke you and start showing up for what didn't. Claire and I got married last fall. Nothing fancy, just some close friends, a backyard, and a whole lot of honesty. We still pass the Kroger sometimes. I never go in anymore. But I don't flinch when I drive by. I don't think about Olivia every day. Just sometimes. And that's enough.